What, if anything, is the role of devotion in the non-dual path? In moments of challenge or the witness of pain, there has been the use of prayer to be of the greatest alignment with truth and love. But what, if anything, is the role of devotion in the non-dual path? In moments of challenge or the witness of pain, there has been the use of prayer to be of the greatest alignment with truth and love.
So, Annie, the role of devotion is absolutely central to the non-dual understanding. This path that we are on, that we have been exploring this week, is as much a path of devotion as it is a path of knowledge. But the question is, what are we devoted to here? We are devoted to truth. We are devoted to what is real. So we don't... so that is why so much emphasis is put on making this exploration into what is true or real in our experience, because only that is worthy of our devotion. So we don't here devote ourselves to a God which is considered to be outside of ourself or at an infinite distance from ourself. In fact, in this approach, what is considered to be God or the ultimate reality let's just back up one stage. If God is anything, God must be everything, because if God were not everything, God would be finite, and if God were finite, God would not be God. So God must be everything, and that means God must be what we essentially are. So in order to find God, we need to find out what we essentially are. That would be the pathway, the direct pathway. Because God must be the essence of ourself, the reality of ourself. So if we make this investigation into ourself to find what is essential to us, we find God's being, God's presence. In fact, it's not God's being, we simply find being. And if we investigate the being that shines in each of our minds as the knowledge I am, we find no limits to that being. And is that not what God is? Unlimited being, the unlimited being from which everyone and everything derives their apparently separate existence. So we are utterly devoted in this approach. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely, there is a place, a very important place for devotion, but make sure that you are devoting yourself not to an idea, not to something outside of yourself, not to something that is at an infinite distance from yourself, but to the very heart or reality of yourself. The heart or reality of yourself is not something personal. Your thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions, etc., these are all personal to you. But the being that shines at the very depths of yourself, which shines as your knowledge of being myself, or the feeling of being, or the knowledge I am, that is pure being, which, before it is coloured or qualified by experience, has no limits to it. It is the being that we all share. It is the being that we share with all people, all animals, and all things. That is God's presence in your heart. And in the same way that it's an earlier question, I explained that we cannot really attend to ourself because ourself is too close to ourself. We cannot stretch ourself from ourself towards ourself. So we cannot really approach this being call God, because to do so would be to imply that we were separate from God. And if we exist as an entity that is separate from God's being, then God's being must again be finite, because if we were separate from God, then we would not be included in God. And if God was separate from us, God would be finite, and therefore God would not be God. So you cannot approach God as a separate self. The way to know God, the way you're to devote yourself to God, is to make this deep investigation into yourself. And in this investigation, everything that is not essential to you will fall away, and your very own self will be revealed as that which is referred to as God. In other words, the highest form of devotion to God, the highest form of prayer to God, is simply to be knowingly yourself. That is the ultimate devotion, simply to be knowingly yourself.